Hello, welcome to today's SSP webinar, the second in our 2013 series, Competitive Strategies for Launching or Repositioning Your Publication. We're very pleased that you could join us today. I'm Gerald Lillian, the organizer for this webinar. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items to review. Your phone is muted automatically in consideration of our presenters and your fellow webinar participants. Please use the text chat feature set to organizers and panelists only to send in questions. Also, please specify to which presenter you would like your question directed. Questions will be compiled and presented to the panelists once all prepared presentations have concluded. At the conclusion of this webinar, you'll receive an evaluation via email. We encourage you to provide feedback so we can continually improve the SSP webinar program. Our moderator today is Barbara Myers-Ford, President of Myers Consulting Services. Since 1983, Barbara's clients have included commercial publishers, professional societies, university presses, and related organizations. Her areas of expertise encompass on-site management, customized training, program evaluation, marketing, new product R&D and launches, plus operational and strategic planning. Holding bachelor's and master's degrees from George Washington University, Barbara is a member of the faculty in the GWU Masters of Professional Studies and Publishing program. One of the founders of SSP, she is also a past president of CSE. It's now my pleasure to turn the webinar over to Barbara so she can introduce our panel and get us underway. Barbara?
Thank you, Gerald. Hello, everyone. Our speakers have put together a solid set of presentations designed to give you an overview of critical aspects concerning the launch or repositioning of a journal, along with a case study for each. Mary Rose Musey, Director of the Current Journals Program in Ithaca, will start with an overview. Mary Rose joined Ithaca in October 2009 to lead the then newly created Current Journals Program, overseeing business development, publisher relations, online hosting, and product development and management of current journal issues from 38 publishers. Previously, she was Director of Project Muse for 3 years, overseeing technology development, production, sales, and marketing, collection development, and finance for Muse's journal collections in the humanities and social sciences. She worked for 13 years at the Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics, most recently as publisher, and began her career at J.B. Lippincott, where she spent 7 years in journal and book editorial production.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Mary Rose holds a Bachelor of Arts in English from the University of Pennsylvania. Following Mary Rose will be Diana Pesic, Journals Manager for the Penn State University Press. Diana has more than 25 years in scholarly journal publishing, from acquisitions through editorial to production and dissemination. Her experience includes both print and electronic publishing. Since joining PSUP in January 2011, Diana has helped the journals program grow from 13 to 30 titles. To complete the formal portion of our webinar, Alice O'Donnell will be presenting a case study outlining how one society approached the launch of a new online journal. Alice began her career in commercial publishing while living in the UK, but switched to scholarly publishing after settling in the Washington, D.C. area. Over the years, she has transitioned manuscripts from paper to electronic review, moved journals from print to online only, and coordinated a process for continuous publication where papers are published as soon as they complete the production process. Alice also worked on one of the earliest open access journals and more recently launched a new translational science journal, the focus of her case study today. She has previously worked at the American Society for Nutrition, the American Physiological Society, and the American Geophysical Union. We anticipate being able to have our colleagues respond live to at least a few questions. As Gerald said in his introduction, the panel will provide answers after the webinar to any questions not posed live. I now turn the webinar over to our first presenter, Mary Rose Musey.
Thank you, Barbara. I hope I can live up to that generous introduction. So I'm going to talk today about strategic considerations when you are considering launching a new journal or positioning an existing one. Before I get into that, though, I want to talk a little bit about the current landscape. And most of what's on this slide is not news, I'm sure, to many of the attendees. We've all heard on various listservs, in articles, on various forums, that the growth in the number of scholarly journals has been many words that begin with the letter E: exponential, explosive, extreme, egregious. It depends on who's talking about it. But in general, there are statistics that back up the expanded growth. There are about 50 million estimated scholarly research articles. That's from an article in Learned Publishing in published in 2010, so there's probably 500,000 more by now. There has been an approximate 1,200% increase in the number of journals included in the Science Citation Index from 1964 through 2009, and an almost 60% increase in the number included in the Social Science Citation Index from 98 to 2009. And we know that the citation indexes cover only a percentage of the titles in existence. Then, as many of us know and live, there's been an attendant decline in institutional library acquisitions budgets. There are, state-funded institutions have been particularly hard hit. There are many sources for this information. I picked the 2012 EBSCO Library Collections and Budgeting Trends Survey from February of last year because it focuses on academic libraries specifically. And you'll see from my slide that a plurality of them had reduced or flat budgets in 2012. Half, slightly more than half, expected flat budgets in the next year, and that they're going to expect reduced budgets in the next year, 22%, and they are going to cut from print journals, print and electronic journals, and print books. So given all that, why would you launch a journal? And how might you reposition an existing journal? Why would you launch a journal? Why would you reposition one? Because research areas are growing. There are new fields being started monthly, it seems like. These are just some examples of ones that have come up within the past 10 years. The bottom one, multi-scale modeling and simulation, is one that I have personal experience with. When I was at SIAM, we launched a journal in this field. Now, some of these fields can be absorbed into existing titles, but many of them, like MMS at the bottom, did require its own journal. Submissions are increasing. This is data from a ScholarOne survey of their client journals. ScholarOne is an online manuscript submission and peer review system. This is a somewhat skewed sample because the plurality of ScholarOne's clients are STEM titles, but still, you'll see from 2005 to 2010, overall submissions increased over 200%. The increases from, notable increases from select countries are indicated here. Probably no surprise that submissions from China went up almost 500%. India as well, almost 450%. Japan, almost 180% in that time period. And the relative portion of submissions coming from the developing world is also increasing, not just the numbers. The relative percentage of increase of submissions in 2005 from China, just over 6%. Just over 11% in 2011. India from 3 to 5, South Korea and Iran. Iran particularly noteworthy. There's a growing influx of STEM work coming out of Iran. But yeah, I think the last bullet is very telling, and it shows that journal editorial boards and publishers have not lost sight of the importance of peer review and the role that it plays. Acceptance rates decreased by about 3%. Peer review is alive and well, and we're all doing our jobs. Another reason you might want to start or reposition a journal is because access models and options for access are evolving. We've all heard about open access in all over the place these days. There are multiple flavors of open access. It can be funded, it can be author publication charges, it can be mandated open access. The subscription model, for many of us, our bread and butter, still alive. There are hybrid journals, very successful ones, that have a combination of open access articles but are also available in their full form by subscription. And then the freemium model, where a certain number of accesses you can do without paying, and then a charge applies. My current organization, JSTOR, has a very successful freemium model we call Register and Read, where a user can register and access 3 articles at a time on a reading shelf. And to get a 4th, or after a certain amount of time, they can choose to purchase an article. Format and presentation options have expanded a great deal in the past decade. Multimedia can now be the content itself, not just a supplement to the content. Just last week, I had a publisher contact my team about they wanted to publish an article that was a video wrapped in metadata, no text to the article itself. Now, it had metadata around it, and we did advise that they pull some citations out into that metadata file, but the article itself was a video. User interaction has expanded expanded what an article actually is in some important ways. Comments, blogging about articles, social features, posting a link to an article on your Facebook page or your Google Plus circle. And then there's post-publication peer review, which tends to get a lot of press when it comes up. It's still developing, but it's certainly an option that we all could consider. And in addition, the goals around why we're in this business and why we start journals and what journals do are expanding. Most of us would agree that the journals that we work on support the mission of our organization, whatever that mission may be. One important mission is dissemination of the best content in a specific area. One way to think about that I have in previous positions is noting that a developing field is becoming increasingly important in certain areas of the world, and that it was our responsibility as stewards of a given field to get the information out in the best way possible through the rigor of peer review and a published journal. There was also our concern of how we were perceived as a publisher. Did we want to be seen as we were on the cutting edge of a developing field? Did we want to be seen as experimental? When I was at the Society for Industrial and Applied Math, we started an all-electronic multimedia journal at a time when there were not very many of those, certainly not in mathematics, but very many, period. And it was in a field where audio and video were becoming increasingly important. And while we didn't view it as experimental, we certainly viewed it on the cutting edge, and we viewed it as pushing the boundaries. Some publishers want to be seen as more traditional. Not that they don't want to support evolving models, but they want to take their time and think about what it means. And of course, cost recovery is something that has to be mentioned in the context of launching journals, repositioning journals. I think the question of which costs you're trying to recover becomes increasingly difficult to answer in today's landscape. You can say your direct costs. You can try to cover indirect. You can say we're only going to try to recover manufacturing or the platform costs. There are many, many ways that you can look at recovering costs, and also the time horizon. Oops, my goodness, I'm so sorry. Okay, so how do you decide whether to launch or reposition? In my experience, launching a new journal requires a charismatic and connected champion. whether that person will become the new journal's editor-in-chief, whether they're on your board of trustees or directors. You need someone who's behind the journal and who can get other people excited about it. Then you need to build a network of supporters at all levels within your organization. Maybe it's top-down, maybe it's bottom-up. You need to build that network of supporters internally and externally. An editorial board, a group of important people in that area. Very important that you ensure a submission pipeline. You don't want to launch the journal and only get enough submissions for the first 2 issues. You need to make sure that you have enough traction in that discipline and in that community that submissions will continue to flow in. Your goals need to be clear and realistic. Don't assume that you can automatically support 6 issues a year, or maybe even 4. Set a realistic goal. Identify your business model. This used to be a lot easier when there were just paper subscription journals. Now you have a lot of choices, some of the ones that I had in a previous slide. The next one is actually one that I think I know I have struggled with in the past. Organizations I've been involved with have struggled with, which is no wishful thinking. Don't think that the journal will automatically have 5,000 submissions and they'll be the best quality in the world. You really want to take a realistic view at the field, at the submission pipeline, at the finances. You want to consider, is this field mature enough to support a new journal? Is the author base and the content unique enough, different enough from what's already out there to support a new journal? And is the format or the editorial model or the publishing flow different enough to warrant a new title? I think in today's day and age, particularly with what we talked about a minute ago about library budgets, you don't want to you want to really think through whether a new title is warranted. Say you decide you don't believe a new title is warranted, that you have an existing journal that can be repositioned. I've also done this in a previous life. First step was to modify the editorial policy and to make some changes to the editorial board. You want to get that done and get that out there. You could introduce new article types, new sections to the journal, new formats. Maybe you want to introduce a section that is online only. Maybe you want to introduce a section that is e-first publishing, which Alice has done. You want to try to introduce some new things. Then you want to market it, you want to promote it, and you want to do it again and again and again, because it's pretty much a given that for the first year or 2, or maybe longer, you will continue to get submissions that are more for the old version of the journal. And you want to make sure you get the word out. Expect it to take a while to sink in. And when thinking about whether you want to reposition, think about whether the field is evolving rather than changing radically. Is gradual repositioning possible? Could you do this slowly? Can you solicit papers in key areas in the field to achieve sustained expansion into those areas? Can you address the needs of new areas by changing the article types, the sections, or the formats? Can that happen within the brand, the imprimatur of an existing journal? And is that brand strong enough to sustain a content and format revamp? Can you do it within that brand? Is it strong enough? Or can that brand support spin-off titles? These are just some things to think about when you're deciding whether to launch a new journal or to reposition an existing journal. And my fellow panelists are going to speak to just these things. And I am going to pass controls now to Diana Pesek. I look forward to taking your questions.
I'm sorry, I had my phone on mute, which they told me not to do. I will go back. We go back to the beginning. And I really apologize for this. Start again. My name is Diana Pesic, Journals Manager. When I came onto the press, we had 13 journals, and this year we will publish 30 journals. When I started, I took a look at our program, and I wanted to see how many journals were publishing on time and how many journals were publishing late. And if they were publishing late, why were they publishing late, and did they hold any consequences? I was new to the university press world, coming from the STM world, and in the especially in medical publishing, on-time publication was extremely important. One journal that we've been publishing really jumped out at me that it was undergoing some problems. The history of the journal was that it started in 1946 by State University of Iowa. In 1949, the University of Chicago Press acquired it, and then in 1961, we acquired the journal. And I thought it was kind of important that this journal has been part of our portfolio almost since the press began. The journal historically was respected in the field of higher education. It had good subscriber retention. It had on-time publication, and it had about a 10% acceptance rate, and it was attracting submissions from senior faculty. When I looked at the journal, and I started noticing a trend from about 5 years prior to I getting there, the journal was starting to publish erratically. It was no longer attracting what we thought were appropriate submissions. The focus of the articles was very narrow. It was almost like a, how do I do this in my classroom? It became a vessel where junior faculty were publishing. The subscriber base, predictably so, was eroding. And I took a look at JSTOR to see how the articles were being used, or how the journal was being used, which articles came up at the top list of being accessed, and it was always the older articles. So I had to take a look and say, why didn't the journal publish on time? Was late publication contributing to attracting the wrong manuscripts? Did the lateness cause the journal to have too many rejections and not enough acceptances? And I think the biggest key that people need to look at was the editor contributing to the problem. So to do an evaluation, since the journal had been with us and it was respected and we wanted to keep it in our portfolio and we wanted to bring it back to where it should be, we partnered and we co-sponsored a colloquium inviting the thought leaders from the field of higher education around the country. We invited about 15 people who were the thought leaders, and then we also invited other people from Penn State's various campuses. Day one was devoted to discussions on higher education. What were the trends? What's going on now, and where did they see education going in the future? Then day two was devoted to analyzing the journal. They took a look at the mission. We looked at the strategy on how might we attract appropriate content, and then we took suggestions for a new editor and a new editorial board. It was determined that the editor was a problem in this particular case. Oops. I'm sorry, I went backwards. So the next steps that we took, we appointed a new editor and a new editorial board. We worked with the editor in conjunction to update the mission statement. And the editor, and Mary Rose alluded to this, the editor was prepared to invite content for 18 months. This is a quarterly journal, so about for a year and a half, they wanted to demonstrate what kind of content they wanted to attract. So as the editor was working on inviting the content, we came up with a new cover design, a new text design. We designed editorial business cards, and what's important about these are, it's a very simple concept, but they have the brand of the journal and they have how to submit manuscripts. And editors can take these with them, and if they hear talks, they can say, oh, would you please consider submitting your paper to my journal? And with the business card and how to submit is right there in their hands. We updated our website and editorial manager. Editorial manager is the manuscript submission and peer review system that we use. We updated those with a new design, and we have new marketing and promotion materials that we are distributing. Again, the design is very different from the old design, and we wanted to get the word out that we have, the journal is back and it's new. We also did a news release to Newswise and to the Chronicle of Higher Education. Newswise, actually in the arts and humanities, they have a subscriber base of about 2,200 media outlets. And within the first day of it going live on Newswise, it was accessed by 700 of these. So we're still hoping to see more coverage of the journal. We developed a mailing list of future contributors, the advisory board, department heads, university presidents, provost deans, assistant deans, looked at appropriate associations and executive directors, political personnel and media personnel who would be interested in the field of higher education, and we did a mailing to all of these people, and we mailed hard copies. And included with the hard copies, we included the press release so that people would know why the journal had a new cover and that what they were getting. We're in the process of setting up an exchange ads, and we are including ads for this journal in other appropriate Penn State journals. We do ads on JSTOR that either link calling for submissions and link to editorial manager, or they link to our journal website. And of course, we will be exhibiting this at conferences. In conclusion, the journal really has undergone, we think it's going to be a good thing for the industry. So I want to say thank you, and I apologize for the technical difficulties that I had.
Hello? Hello?
Hello. I'm not seeing a screen to pass.
I don't see one to receive either.
Pardon me?
I don't see a screen to receive. This is Alice.
I'm not seeing anything to pass. I can't change the presenter. I'm sorry.
Alice, the audience has your screen, so anytime you're ready to go, just hit from beginning.
Okay, great. Thank you, girls. You can all hear me, yes? Okay, great. Well, thank you to Diana and Mary Rose for those wonderful presentations. I will now aim to give you the perspective from an association. My name is Alice O'Donnell, and with the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology. So we are a medium-sized association which was founded in 1928. Current membership just over 13,200, which it continues to grow, and 42% of the members live outside the United States. The membership is multidisciplinary and consists of both clinical and basic researchers, of which 44% are MD ophthalmologists, 26% PhDs, and 30% other classification, which includes optometrists, osteopaths, and veterinarians. So quite a range.
Alice, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you please hit F5 or from the beginning so your screen goes to full screen mode?
Oh, okay. Better? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Currently, the association publishes 3 journals, IOVS, or Investigative Ophthalmology and Visual Science, which was founded in 1962 and has just celebrated its 50th anniversary. Journal of Vision, one of the early open access journals back in 2001, it seems a long time ago now, and the recent Translation, Vision Science and Technology, or TVST as we usually refer to it, which was just launched last year. It's very much in its infancy at the moment. Just very briefly, IOVS receives over 2,000 submissions a year, and this continues to grow. The annualized, like the submissions are coming in at about the rate of 6% per year. The rejection rate's around 50%, so we publish over 1,000 articles or 10,000 pages annually. We decided to, or the board decided to drop the print in 2009, so went online only in 2010, and then in 2011 then began the move to a publish as ready model, which I will illustrate more about now. The sorry, I have 2 screens going here. With the increase in submissions, it was becoming a problem to keep small-sized print journals, so hence the reason to abandon the print model and just focus on the online only. It also meant that we could improve the frequency and timing also. So I'm sorry, the sound went there. Is it back? Okay. The benefit of going to a publish as ready model was that it reduced the turnaround time, the length of time that authors were waiting to get their articles published. So if something was ready for through production on the 1st of the month, it went up on the 1st or 2nd of that month instead of waiting until the end of the month for the rest of the issue. Now, it did cause some technical problems at the beginning because a lot of changes had to be made internally to deal with this and to move both staff and vendors away from the working with the print model. So it did have its challenges in the beginning, but it has been very well worth it. And right now we're publishing at around within 30 days, I guess, from submission to from acceptance to final publication, which is helping actually to keep the submissions up. The other advantage of just going to online only and changing the frequency of publication is it has helped the online advertising. And while we didn't have a very high advertising revenue in the past, it's starting to increase, we've noticed, in the past year and a half, because advertisers now see great potential in publishing articles every other day. The website gets updated much more frequently, and advertisers now can take advantage of even maybe running an ad for a week, for example, around a particular set of articles, around a particular meeting coming up. And so, you know, they can even run an advertising for, we'll say, 2.5 months. So again, there's more flexibility. And also the table of contents, because we have table of contents which issue very, very frequently. Again, there has been a good uptake on the table of contents advertising. The other potential opportunities as well are also you can have mini classified series for various services, which again can be linked back to particular articles or maybe events within the organization. You can tie the two together. You can create special advertising reports, and you can also engage vendors with possible support advertising for special issues or special collections on specific topics. Journal of Vision, even though it is one of the oldest open access journals back since 2001, which of course was all full of animation and is a very, very unique journal, an award-winning journal, they felt the need to still be very creative, so introduced these new article types called methods, which makes great use of Mathematica software, which enables the readers to actually interact with the various mathematical formula in the paper. Some of it is within the body of the paper, and some of it is as supplementary material. It's very exciting. It just started about 6-8 months ago, and already authors are, they're getting quite excited about it. The downside of this type of paper is it takes quite some time to review it, so it takes a little longer in the peer review process. But once published, it seems to have a lot of hits and downloads. One of the other main features of our online-only open access journal is we have all these downloads and metrics which get added each month. And again, a very, very popular thing. Keeps bringing interest back to the journal, and I think that it just keeps the interest up. And again, submissions to this journal are not down in spite of various funding cuts, etc. And then finally, the new journal. So this was developed because a lot of submissions were coming in to the other journals, and they were being rejected, not because they were scientifically poor, but there was no home for them to go to. And so, as Diana, I think it was Diana, had said about launching a new journal, we did have a very charismatic champion with Dr. Zarban, and he presented this wonderful gave this wonderful presentation to our board, and this was approved. So we just opened for business last year. Is it an easy task? No, it's not. It is interesting keeping the submission pipeline going because we are getting a lot of inquiries. There are a lot of engineers and bioengineers interested in publishing, but of course this gives them an opportunity to appear in PubMed searches, which heretofore they couldn't. However, they're waiting for the go-ahead that we have been accepted for PubMed, which actually we did receive last week, and also content will be published in PubMed Central. So I think we shall see a little uptake. Also, the other reason for launching a translational research journal was it was the theme of last year's annual meeting, so it was sort of nice to have the two working together. So that is my summary on the different things that we're doing to remain innovative, to keep submissions coming in, and I'll pass back to the organizer and look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Rose, Diana, and Alice, for all the experience and information you've just shared. Are there any questions from the audience? I haven't received any as of yet. So while we're waiting for those, Mary Rose, you had mentioned that the charismatic champion is essential to launching a journal. What might you suggest as a substitute for such a champion if a newly emerging area was identified by, say, the publishing staff and all the other criteria seem to be in place?
Oddly enough, I would suggest replacing a champion with data. Staff wouldn't have come up with the idea for a new journal without data on the field. Programs being formed in universities or national labs or government agencies, how many submissions they're getting to other journals in this area that may be being rejected because they don't fit. What are their competitors doing? You know, what else is out there? You need data. Often that data, particularly, often that data is what you need to convince someone to become a charismatic champion.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. And Diana, you were talking about coordinating your colloquium with another organization. Could you give us a few more details, like who took the lead, and are there any specific bits of advice you might suggest to our audience to use this technique to realign a journal?
Yes, thank you, Barbara. We were very fortunate. We had, when you're searching for a new editor or something for your journal, you start talking to lots of people. And we went to a dean on our campus who was the dean of the education, and he reported into the provost, and it was actually the office of the provost that co-sponsored the colloquium with us. The gentleman who was the dean, who actually has become the new editor, although he hadn't been named editor at the time the colloquium was put together, he worked with our director in identifying the people from around the country who should be invited. We decided to do it as in the colloquium in this manner instead of doing a focus group. And I guess you could, because we thought we would have a targeted focus group that we had.
Okay, Diana, I have two questions from our audience. The first is, what was the process you went through to change the editor? How difficult was it to do?
It's always a difficult decision, and we started talking to people about what they, again, people in the field of education, what they liked and what they didn't like about the journal, and it kept coming back to the fact that it wasn't a place for senior faculty to publish. It was too much of what is happening in my classroom. And we had a very frank talk with the former editor of the journal, telling her exactly what we were planning to do, thanking her for her contribution. And I think she understood, and she was very gracious and finished out publishing her issues and turned over the helm. But again, the process of finding a new editor is talking to people in the field and asking who they think might be a good editor. And you'll start seeing a small group of names keep reemerging.
Thanks so much, Diana. One of our listeners asked to go back to Mary Rose's presentation. And the question is, how do you know or determine if a brand is strong enough to sustain a revamp or spin-off?
Oh, that's a really good question. One way you could, I think that if your brand is strong, if your journal brand is strong and it's known, you'll be able to tell that by the quality of the people who are submitting to it in some ways, the people who want to be on the editorial board, if they want to be reviewers for the journal. Also, metrics like your impact factor and things like that. All of these might actually argue against repositioning the journal, but they're essential if you're going to do it because you want to make sure that you have this base of people who will support what you're going to do, even if they may no longer be on the editorial board, or even if they may no longer choose to review for the journal because the field has evolved a little bit. I think you also want to actually talk with your subscribers. I think that's very important to find out if they're considering, maintaining subscriptions. Will they stick with you? Have they noticed what might be happening in the field? Librarians are incredibly insightful about these kinds of things. Subject librarians and faculty talk all the time, in the best of cases, about things that are happening in the field, and they can be a good source of information about the strength of the brand. It's a tough time right now because the journal brand is getting weakened a little bit by the article economy. The publisher brand may be being weakened in the same way. But there are people that you can actually talk to and get honest evaluations, and then there are other metrics.
Thanks so very much. Diana, you have another question. Do you have any thoughts about repositioning a journal to reach an international audience? For example, a national level journal in a foreign country that wishes to broaden its base for submissions and readers.
So is the journal based in the U.S. or is the journal based outside of the U.S.?
I think we're looking at outside the U.S. If the person who posed the question can add more to that, we're happy, but let's assume it's outside the U.S. for now.
Yes, to reposition a journal internationally, and the U.S. market is actually very attractive for journals. Us publishers here in the U.S. are always looking for ways to get a reach into the international market. And I think the best way to position your journal is to have on your editorial board members from the areas of the world of which you want to start attracting submissions, and then asking your editorial board to have their colleagues submit articles to the journal. I think your editorial board is key in repositioning it to have more of an international flair.
Okay, regarding launching a new journal, Alice, why don't you take this one? The question is, how do you get new peer reviewers? Why would they want to review for the new journal?
That's a great question and actually presented quite a challenge. So to get peer reviewers, particularly new ones, we asked the editorial board to supply the names of 3 to 5 potential reviewers who were not currently in our database. And then we contacted them and they all agreed. We also went to other nanotechnology journals and journals in computational biology and bioinformatics, and looked through the tables of contents and the articles and contacted those authors to see would they be willing to either A, submit an article, or B, to submit a review or to perform a review for the journal. So it does involve work, and working a lot of time outside your organization, your sort of traditional groups.
Thanks so much, Alice. That, in fact, answered another participant's question. A new one, and this is sent out to anyone. What is your best advice for gaining new subscribers on a limited budget? Diana, why don't you take that one first, please?
I think if you can do exchange ad programs, I think that gets the word of your journal out to subscribers, and it's journals that are in the field. And what I'm finding is that people are very agreeable, even if they're your competitor, because then their journal is getting exposure in your journal. Another way I think is really good, and I'm plugging JSTOR, Mary Rose, and I thank you, but we like to put ads on JSTOR and just linking it to how people can subscribe to the journal. We do what we have promotion sheets that we take to our conferences and we give to our editors to take to conferences, where we talk a little bit about the journal, we give the pricing, and we put an order form on. These can be done very inexpensively, and you can print them off your own printer in your office.
Thanks very much, Diana.
Might I speak to that?
Oh, yes.
I'm
great,
sorry.
Mary Rose.
Hi.
No, go right ahead.
I would say this is another place where data can be your friend. You can open up access to the journal online temporarily. You can gather usage data from a given institution. You can gather turnaway data from a given institution. You can bundle the journal, access to that journal with a subscription to another journal. And again, use the data to point out that users at that institution are coming and they're either getting to the articles, or worse, they're getting turned away from the articles in support for the institution picking up the subscription. It's not easy, and I don't mean to minimize it. I mean, especially in this day and age, it's not easy, and often new journals only get added at the expense of old journals getting canceled. But again, I think data is your friend.
Another inexpensive way, and I'm sorry, Barbara, I'd just like to jump in and say, subscription agents, get the information about your new journal or your existing journals out to subscription agents early. Give them as much detail as you can to generate excitement, so that when they're out talking to librarians, they can show what new products they have also.
Excellent. Those are all great suggestions.
Hi, Barbara, this is Alice.
Yes, Alice.
Yeah, what we also did was we offered the new journal at a heavily discounted rate to existing subscribers as well. So that maintained a great level of interest, particularly the institutional subscribers. So in some cases where we were almost in danger of losing an institutional subscriber, we actually were able to retain at least the existing ones, which is great.
Excellent. If you don't mind, what do you define as deep discount, Alice?
Well, right now it is, the new journal is available for an additional $200 if you take the full price clinical journal, the IOVS journal. So it's like you're talking in terms of probably 80%.
That's very enticing. Okay.
Yes. But it doesn't have, you know, it's not top heavy with content yet anyway, so.
But it's a great way to prime the pump. Well, thank you to all three of you. I'm going to turn things back to Gerald, and I do hope that everyone has gained some useful information that they can apply in the near term.
Thank you, Barbara, and I'd also like to thank Mary Rose and Diana and Alice as well. And also thank you to the audience. I know we had kind of a rough start here. couple of the comments that did not get picked up in the beginning were that you'll be receiving a link shortly after the webinar in the next day or so. It has both an evaluation that we hope you will fill out, as well as a link to the rebroadcast, which the recording was picked up, so you'll hear those opening comments in the beginning of Barbara's introductions, and also the slides will be posted, so you'll be able to get access to all of those. So again, we thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing you or hearing you join another webinar in the future. Thanks.